Hi friends, welcome to IIBS IAS Academy YouTube channel. I am Ashok, Assistant Professor at IIBS IAS Academy, and I have been training from UPSC aspirants since the past 4 years. In this YouTube channel, we will be covering all the issues important for UPSC Civil Services Examination and also for the state public service examinations. Please do like, share, comment and do subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Welcome to IIBS IAS Academy. Today we are going to analyze the newspaper The Hindu on October 28, 2020. And the first news we are going to study today is US to support India's defense of territory. Recently, India and America has come together for a bilateral dialogue. So we are calling it 2+2 dialogue. So when you are calling 2+2 dialogue, the foreign minister and as well as it is an interministerial dialogue. So the foreign minister and also the defense minister of America will be coming to India, and the foreign minister and the defense minister of India will be sitting together. The four will be sitting together and drafting chief or strategic agreements. And in the previous 2+2 dialogue, which has happened before 2 years, the Comcast agreement was actually signed where the America can give strategic technology to India. And recently, the fourth and the last fundamental agreement, foundational agreement was actually signed. We call it BECA. And when you are talking about the foundational agreements, so the very first foundational agreement is General Security of Military Information Agreement, which was signed between America and India, and Logistics Exchange and Memorandum Agreement, and Communication and Information Security Memorandum Agreement, and Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement. So these are the agreements, and the past agreement which was actually signed was Comcast agreement, that was the third one, and finally the Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement was actually signed between India and America, which shares strategic geospatial information with India. It increases the security and allied activities between India and America. And recently we have seen there is a threat which is happening across our borders. There is an aggression from the China to occupy the Indian territory. So India is trying to protect its territorial sovereignty at any cost. So we have seen the Galwan issue recently. The soldiers from India and also soldiers of China have died at the Galwan Valley. So in these circumstances, the America has been assuring India that America will come to the rescue if there is any crisis in protecting India's territorial sovereignty. And the next one we are going to analyze. The next news is now outsiders can buy land in Jammu and Kashmir. So we'll give a brief understanding about I'll give you a brief understanding about the Jammu and Kashmir. So after the independence, there were 3 territories which were a part of India immediately. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel has actually accumulated all the princely states into the territory of India. So 3 princely states which thought otherwise, those were Hyderabad, Junagadh and Jammu and Kashmir. And one way or the other, Hyderabad and Junagadh has come into the territory of India, but not the Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir thought of staying as an independent state. But after there was an aggression from the Pakistan, when the Jammu and Kashmir has asked India's assistance in defending its territory, we have asked Kashmir to sign the instrument of accession. And with the signing of instrument of accession, Jammu and Kashmir has become the territory or a part of India. But even though it became a part of India, there were many provisions which were special for Jammu and Kashmir. They have come with the Article 370. Which the BJP government recently have completely removed the Article 370 from the Constitution of India. And it has separated Jammu and Kashmir as it has removed the statehood of Jammu and Kashmir, and it has made Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh union territories. It has made 2 union territories from Jammu and Kashmir state. So previously, because of the Article 370, no people from any part of the India can buy land in Jammu and Kashmir. But because the Article 370 was actually amended and removed from the Constitution of India, now anyone from any part of the country can actually buy land in Jammu and Kashmir, and it can help for the development of the Jammu and Kashmir. So recently, the exclusive rights enjoyed by the local population of land under Article 370 or diluted. So what are the recent land laws? So how the land laws have been changed? So the features of the land laws are, the very first one, the new law ends the exclusive right of permanent residents over the land or in the union territory. So new law has ended the exclusive privileges or exclusive rights to the permanent residents of Jammu and Kashmir. Now anybody who wants to invest their money into the Jammu and Kashmir can actually invest. Anybody can buy land in Jammu and Kashmir. The next one, people including investors outside Jammu and Kashmir can purchase land now. Right? The people including the investors, anyone can actually buy Jammu and Kashmir even if they stay outside the Jammu and Kashmir. Then third provision, there will be a bar, though on the agricultural land, to the use for non-agricultural purposes. So obviously agricultural lands are actually protected very well in India. So agricultural lands cannot be easily converted into the non-agricultural land. So those provisions are also given. There will be a bar on agricultural land to be used for non-agricultural related aspects. And the next one, land can be transferred in favor of a person or an institution for a purpose of the promotion of healthcare or senior secondary or higher or specialized education. So the land can be allotted for the development of medicine or agricultural related medicine or educational allied activities. And the next one, the last but not the least, the army officer not below the rank of corps commander can declare any area of Jammu and Kashmir as a strategic area. So when you are declaring some area as a strategic area, that will be used for the military training purposes and allied activities for operational and training requirements of the armed forces. So these are the few provisions which have amended with the dilution of article 370, right? So this is, now the outsiders can buy the land in Jammu and Kashmir. So this one, the news, the fines for road traffic violations to be deducted from the FastTag accounts. So what are FastTag accounts is important for the prelims perspective. The FastTag is an electronic toll collection system. So there will be toll gates available everywhere on the national highways, and the toll is not being collected in cash. So we are having the RFID attached to the car or any vehicle, any four-wheelers or multiple vehicles. So that will be scanned and immediately the money will be deducted accordingly. So those are the FastTags. The FastTag is an electronic toll collection system in India operated by the National Highways Authority of India. National Highways Authority of India, which is very important, right? So now we are trying to collect the not just the toll taxes but also the fines which will be levied for the traffic violations through FastTag accounts. So this is important. And the next one, efforts on to preserve heritage buildings, says city police chief. So when you're talking about a heritage building, first thing you have to remember is about the World Heritage Sites, right? UNESCO is the organization which will be designating something, right, as a World Heritage Site, and there are 10 different criteria to designate something as a World Heritage Site. A few of the criteria are whether it has played a very significant role in the evolution of the mankind, or it has played a significant role in the architecture, or it is a natural feature which has to be preserved. So there are 10 different criteria to select something to be a natural heritage site. And natural heritage sites can be classified into two types, tangible and intangible. Recently, when it comes to the intangible natural, the World Heritage Sites, our Kumbh Mela from India was actually got the World Heritage Site status. World Heritage status. Next one, important for the prelims perspective, what is rainwater harvesting? So rainwater harvesting is a method by which we will be harvesting the rainwater instead of runoff. Usually when the rain comes, so whatever the rain that comes, it will be just run off into the water bodies. But now the way to conserve the water, and way to utilize the water more, rainwater more, is by the way of rainwater harvesting. We will be collecting the rainwater and we will be using for different purposes. So we call it rainwater harvesting. And the project which was established in Chennai, to conserve the rainwater, to use the rainwater, is Integrated Stormwater Drain Project. Integrated Stormwater Drain Project, which is utilizing rainwater harvesting technology. Next one, Chairman of Supreme Court appointed committee visits Sigur Elephant Corridor. So we have different corridors, we have different protected areas. So those protected areas are protecting the biodiversity and also the flora and fauna in a particular geographical area. And those protected area network is nothing but the national parks, the wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, and the community reserves, right? So these are the different protected area networks. So all in the protected area networks, different species of animals which are threatened or endangered or critically endangered are actually protected in those areas. And there is Sigur Elephant Corridor. In the Sigur Elephant Corridor, which were of the illegal constructions that were actually present, so those has to be removed off. So recently the court has given the verdict, the Supreme Court has given the verdict saying that whatever the illegal constructions that are present, those has to be removed, and it has established the 3-member committee, and 3-member committee has visited the particular site to verify whatever the grievances that were filed by the people were actually just or unjust, right? So, following the actions of the Supreme Court's order to seal illegal resorts in the area and take down any illegal fencing that hinders the movement of the wildlife. This is the main objective why the 3-member committee was actually committee was actually enforced by the Supreme Court of India. The next one, coming to editorial page. Compound conundrum. While the waiver of the interest on the interest is welcome, the MSMEs need more help. In the previous news, in the yesterday's news, we have already seen about the waiver of the interest on interest. Alright, when the moratorium was actually imposed by the government of India, when during the COVID crisis or during the lockdown, because the money was not there with the people, because of the economic slowdown previously, because of the economic stagnation, so it has become very difficult for the people to pay back the loan amount or the interest amount or the EMIs. So because of this, the government of India has asked the people not to pay for a certain period, and we are calling it moratorium. But the question raised whether the interest will be levied during the non-payment term or not. And recently the center has actually asked the people not to worry about any interest on interest waiver, and the people who have paid the interest on interest will get their money back. But here the question is not about just the people, right? So there are many areas where the eligible loans were actually identified. The government has given the moratorium for the loans on education, housing, consumer durables, automobiles, consumption, credit card borrowings, as well as the credit provided to the MSMEs. But all the other areas were individual in nature, and yes, when the interest on interest is actually removed off, so it will benefit the people. If the compound interest is actually levied on the money, on the principal amount, then they will have to bear more amount, they will have to pay more amount of the money. So that is a burden to the people of India. So, but when it comes to MSMEs has lot of difference because they had to bear so much of economical crisis. You can see here, MSMEs may find the assistance far too small. It is not at all significant. Why it is not at all significant? Because the differences, because given the scale of economic hardship they have endured, and from the demand destruction to material and the labor shortage and the regulatory woes. So these are the areas where the MSMEs have shrunken very much, and most of the startups have actually closed down during because of the lockdown period. So the MSMEs has to be put aside from the individuals, and they have to have the better facilities so that they can start the work immediately. It would have been far greater economic sense for the government to have categorized MSMEs separately. So this is very important for the in the terms of economical perspective. You have to read this article, right? And the next one. The dead letter. The next one, dead letter. Chileans have given themselves a chance to chart out an inclusive constitution. So in 2019-2020, during the time of 2019 and 2020, Chile people have started a protest against the government, protest against the conservative government, and this protest has actually started with a small rise in prices. the rise in prices of daily commute. So because of the increased daily prices, the people have started revolting, and it has progressed so much so that they are addressing the inequalities and income inequalities between the nations and economical liberalization. They are questioning the social aspects, the social policies taken by the government of India, and finally they are asking about the new constitution to be drafted for the people. The last year when Chile was shaken by the mass protests, the conservative president Sebastian agreed to hold a referendum on rewriting the country's constitution introduced during the military dictatorship of Augusto in a bid for calm. So it was initially the constitution which was actually drafted was because of the dictatorship, and the same constitution has been followed till now. So the people are asking for the change of democracy, and when it comes to the income inequality, about just 2% of the population in the Chile are governing about 28% of the income, and about 50% of the population of Chile have only just 2.1% of the income. So that is a huge economical imbalance. So right. So because of this, the people are fighting for the economical reforms. They are fighting for the economical reforms, and they are fighting for the changes in the constitutional reforms. And protests, how the protests have actually started and how it has actually progressed. The protests erupted last year over a small rise in metro fares, but it soon snowballed into the public agitation demand reforms and abolition for the, and how it actually progressed. It actually started because of the small rise in the fares, because every time the fares will be adjusted with the inflation, and the same way they have actually done it, but it has created an outrage. But it soon changed into the public agitation demanding different reforms. What reforms are they asking for? The abolition of the private pension fund scheme and implemented by the general, and an increase in the investments in the education and the healthcare, and strengthen the rights of the indigenous communities. These are the demands that were being asked by the people of Chile. And how the process is going to be done, because the government has asked for the referendum. It has asked for the referendum. About 78% have voted for the new constitution. Now they have to draft the new constitution. So when will it be drafted and when will it be enforced? The replacing of the constitution is going to be a 2-year process, right? And because of the COVID-19, the process has been delayed because of the lockdowns. And next year, Chileans will elect about 155 members for the Constituent Assembly to draft the new constitution, which will be put into plebiscite, right? And when all the people have accepted for the new constitution by a simple majority in 2022, then the constitution will come into force. GST and the complexity of political negotiations. So when you talk about the tax, that is the way the government gets the revenue. When you talk about the tax, that is the way a government gets the revenue. And previously, the center used to collect the taxes separately from the state. The state taxes are different and the central taxes are different. With 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act, with the introduction of GST, with the introduction of goods and services tax, it has combined. That means the power to levy the taxes was actually gone to the center. Now the center can change how the taxations are made, how the revenues are generated. So the states doesn't have power. So with the loss of decision making, with the loss of the revenues because of the GST, the center has actually promised the states that they will be compensated for 5 years. Whatever the losses they are getting, they will be compensated for 5 years. But recently, because of the economic slowdown, and immediately followed by the COVID crisis, there was an imbalance. The central government, because the taxes were not received because of the economic slowdown or because of the lockdown. Because of this, no much revenue was actually generated. So how will the central government pay to the state government? So the central government has come up with an idea that the state governments can actually take loan from it. But the state governments are arguing, especially the non-BJP states, the government where there is a non-BJP political party, those states are actually arguing that the center should actually take the loan and it should give it to the states. So this was the argument that was following. This was the tussle between the state government and the central government. And recently when the central government was actually thinking of not paying the dues to the state government, some of the state governments are actually trying to approach the court as well. So that was the GST and the complexity of the political negotiations. And when you are talking about the political negotiations, the previously during the Congress government, because it was a mixture of all the political parties, right? There was no single dominant political party during the Congress rule. So because of which most of the negotiations used to happen within the political party. But now because there is a single major political party, it is not a mixture of different political parties. So it was a single dominant political party, because of which the decision making is actually within the political party but not between the political parties. So the negotiations, the political negotiations is becoming more and more complex when it comes to GST. And they use the Article 356 here, and to check the competitors, the Congress in the previous years used to use all the available means, right? Even the use of Article 356. And when you are talking about the Article 356, this is an article which empowers the president to rule a particular state when the constitutional machinery was not working properly. When the constitutional machinery has actually failed, that means when the state government was actually dissolved, then the president will actually rule the state. The president will become the head of the state, right? So we call it president's rule. So that is Article 356. That is Article 356, and which is mostly misused. The mostly misused for the political advantages of government. Next one. Indian discom stress is more than the sum of its past. So discoms are nothing but distribution companies, the power distribution companies. So generators, the power projects, right, hydropower projects or thermal power projects or solar power projects, they will be generating electricity. They are the generators. So discoms will be purchasing electricity from those generators and they will be distributing to the public. They will be distributing to the public. But the discoms are actually facing huge economical crisis. It is more than 1 lakh crore, right? It is more than 1 lakh crore. They are in the losses. The distribution have been called the linchpin, that means most crucial ones, but also the weakest link in the electricity chain. And recently the government has given the stimulus. During the COVID crisis, the government has actually given the stimulus of about 20 lakh crore. Of the 20 lakh crore, it has actually spent about 90,000 crores initially to the discoms. It has given about 90,000 crores to the discoms, which was upgraded to 1,25,000 now, right? So, well, it was called the economical stimulus plan, but it is really the loan meant to be used by the discoms to pay off to the generators. Because the discoms are facing a huge losses, they are not able to pay to the generators. So, this money is given as a loan so that the discoms can pay to the generators, but not just as a stimulus plan, right? And who are the biggest defaulters when it comes to the discoms? The state governments are the biggest defaulters, responsible for an estimated a third of trade receivables, besides not paying subsidies in full or on time. So the state governments are to be blamed, because the state governments are taking electricity at a subsidized prices. So when the government is taking at a subsidized prices, the government has to pay to the discounts, but the government is failing to pay the money to the discounts on time. And the other reasons why, the other reasons for the losses of the discounts is aggregated technical and commercial losses. We call it AT&C. Aggregated technical and commercial losses. This is the reason for the losses of the discoms, and those losses are because of the lack of collection, from the lack of collection from the consumers, because the consumers are not paying the money to the theft, electricity theft, right? So all these are the reasons for the losses in the discoms or the distribution companies in the electricity or the power sector. India's outreach to Myanmar. Right? Recent announcement of initiatives establish India's presence in the sector where it ought to be more pronounced. So recently, the dignitaries from India has actually went to Myanmar, which was previously called Burma. Recently, the visit of the Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan and the Chief of Army Staff Manoj have gone to Myanmar, which reflected the multidimensional interest. When Narendra Modi has went to Myanmar during 2015, so he said that there are 5 Bs which are similar which are connecting India and Myanmar. Those are the Burmatic, Bollywood, Bharatanatyam, right? And also Bollywood, Bharatanatyam, Burmatic, and 2 others. There are the 5 Bs which are combining India and the Myanmar. So historical relationships which we have, the Buddhism and one other thing. Okay. So when it comes to the Myanmar, there are many significant ties between the India and the Burma, historically speaking. And previously, during the past few years, in the past decades actually, the relationship between the India and the Myanmar were not so good because of the political tussle between the India and the Myanmar back in 70s, right? Back in 70s. And the India had actually thought that having the relationship with Myanmar is very significant, because of which, even though there was a military coup, but not the democratic government which was present there, India tried to play its cards by supporting whichever the government that comes into the power, which you can see here. Yeah. It has also enabled the Delhi to work with the party in power. Right? Previously, India has distanced itself from the Myanmar, which later thought the India should have diplomatic relationship with the Myanmar, whichever the government that may be. It may be military backed. There was a military coup which gave rise to double-it uprising. Right? Double-it uprising, which led to the formation of the political party, democratic political party called the National League for Democracy. San Suu Kyi, headed by San Suu Kyi. And she was imprisoned, she was in home arrest for a very long time, and later there was a consensus between the military government and also the democratic government, and they have framed changes in the constitution of the Myanmar. Either it is a military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party that won the 2010 polls, or the pro-democratic National League for Democracy, which is in power now. And for the examination perspective, you have to focus on double-it uprising. Double-it uprising, please look at it. Right? What actually led to the double-it uprising? So it has happened in 8th August 1988. Right? All the students have come out and they have protested against the government, and they said the military has to come down and democratic government has to be established. The GilgitBaltistan game plan. So GilgitBaltistan is the territory in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. It is in the region of the Pakistan occupied Kashmir where India is actually claiming that it is its own territory. And now the Islamabad is trying to integrate the region into the Pakistan. And what are the reasons for it? This is a very important article when it comes to the mains examination and as well as the prelims examination. And when you see the Kashmir as a territory, there are 2 different regions, the Pakistan occupied Kashmir and the China occupied Kashmir. And the Pakistan occupied Kashmir is the GilgitBaltistan, and the China occupied Kashmir is called the Aksai Chin region. And we are governing the center portion, which is integrating the Indian territory with the Pakistan occupied Kashmir and the China occupied Kashmir, that is the Ladakh region, which is the highest battleground in the world, So what are the reasons? What are the reasons for the inclusion or the integration of the GilgitBaltistan into the territory of Pakistan, which so far did not happen, right? Because Pakistan occupied Kashmir was occupied immediately after the independence. So far it did not include the territory into its own political map. So what is the reason it is an independent territory being governed, right? So what is the reasons? So this is about a small brief history about the GilgitBaltistan. And technically speaking, GilgitBaltistan was a part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir at the time of partition, although Dogra rule sat very lightly in this region. So this was the region which was independently governed even before the independence. It was independently governed even at the time of independence. You can see here. Gilgit has its own British officered local army, the Gilgit Scouts, which switched the allegiance, right? They switched the allegiance to the Pakistan within just 1 week. The Maharaja accessed to India. So there was an instrument accession where the Maharaja signed to India. So entire Jammu and Kashmir has become the part of India. But the Gilgit Scouts which were present in that, which were established to maintain the security from the explorations from the Central Asia. That was a British ideology to protect the Indian territory, its control over the Indian territory from the Central Asia, from invasions from the Central Asia, right? So when they switched the allegiance towards the Pakistan, since that particular time it was being governed by the Pakistan, and we have established the line of control, right? We have established the line of control, and since then the line of control has become the boundary between the Pakistan occupied Kashmir and the Indian Jammu and Kashmir. So from the beginning, so GilgitBaltistan was governed as a separate entity by the Pakistan and not as a Pakistan occupied Kashmir, right? So Islamabad has hesitated to declare it as a province of Pakistan because this is very important, this point is very important, because of its claim that Jammu and Kashmir is disputed territory. Because Jammu and Kashmir is a disputed territory, right? The Pakistan cannot unilaterally decide that particular region belongs to me, and its future must be decided by the plebiscite among its inhabitants. When there was a crisis, when there was India and the Pakistan crisis, when there was the India-Pakistan crisis in 1947, so we have the United Nations Security Council has come and it has asked for the standoff, and it has asked for the conduction of the plebiscite. And in the plebiscite, whichever the country wins the plebiscite, the entire Jammu and Kashmir will go to the particular territory. But when it comes to the conducting a plebiscite, it has given 3 rules, right? It has given 3 rules. The first rule is that the Pakistan has to take its army from Pakistan occupied Kashmir, right? It has to demilitarize the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And second one, India can maintain its own territory, its own army, just for the defense related purposes. And the third one, if the above two conditions are satisfied, the plebiscite has to be conducted. But the Pakistan never withdrew its troops from the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, because of which the plebiscite was never conducted. The plebiscite has never happened, right? So because it was in a feeling that the plebiscite will be conducted and entire Jammu and Kashmir will become a part of Pakistan, so it never declared that as a part of Pakistan. But why now? Why suddenly the Pakistan has included that particular territory to be the part of Pakistan? So when you talk about it, so we can talk about the Article 370. Recently the Article 370 was removed totally, which washed away the wishes of Pakistan having the Jammu and Kashmir to be its own territory, right? So because of which now it was thinking to include the GilgitBaltistan. That is one reason. But the second reason is about the population. So in the GilgitBaltistan region, it is the predominantly Shia community. So ethnic people which are present over there, they always wanted to be a part of Pakistan. And the next one, the third reason is China. The China wanted Islamabad to declare the GilgitBaltistan to be the part of its own territory, because the Silk Road or China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is actually passing to GilgitBaltistan, and it has invested a lot of money in the GilgitBaltistan region. So because of which it wanted Islamabad to actually integrate that territory into the Pakistan. And one other reason, there is a strategic advantage of GilgitBaltistan because it is near to the Ladakh, because it is near to the Ladakh. So it is the reason, the Ladakh is the reason which is actually in the center of the China occupied Kashmir and the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So it plays a very significant strategic role. The next one, play on the electoral bonds. So this is very important for the prelims perspective and also the mains perspective because of the electoral reforms. In the mains perspective, you have to read it as an electoral reforms, and in the prelims perspective, you have to read about the provisions of the electoral bonds. Right? There is no much information which is present over here, but you have to read about the electoral bonds. Right? So it is to provide the transparency. It is to enhance the transparency during the electoral funding. And India designates 18 persons based in Pakistan as terrorists. So, for the examination perspective, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, as per the latest amendment which has happened recently, right? As per the UAPA, the central government, right, or the agencies can declare even the individuals as terrorists. Previously only the organizations can be declared as the terrorists, but now the individuals can also be declared as terrorists. So this is important point. So you read the provisions of UAPA, and there was a lot of criticism which has happened with the amendment. You have to go through the entire thing. And pollution winter poses a threat center. So recently because of the COVID-19 crisis, right, coronavirus disease. So because of the COVID-19, so we have the people with the comorbid conditions or the previous health disorders will get greatly affected. And the statistics has actually shown that the pollution plays a very important role in the mortality because of COVID, right? So because the winter is coming, there will be photochemical smog, which increases the particulate matter in the atmosphere, which becomes really difficult to handle the children and also the older people. So they are prone to more lung-based disorders because of the pollution and also because of the COVID. And ICMR has actually said that the children are now showing some evidences of being spreaders or even super spreaders. Right? When you're talking about the spreaders, so from children, the COVID is actually being spread to multiple people. Right? So because the COVID is having very less symptoms in most of the population. So most of the people are asymptomatic. So when you're talking about asymptomatic, they have the huge potential to become the carriers. So during the COVID-19 crisis, most of the people are avoiding the adults, but when it comes to the children, they can become the super spreaders and they can spread the diseases to the older people in the home. So California wildfires force major evacuation. About 1 lakh people are actually affected because of the wildfires. So recently we have been seeing, since the past few years, we have been seeing wide range of wildfires, and continuously over the year there are thousands of wildfires which are happening across the world, and the reason for the wildfires is the climate change. So because of the climate change, the areas are becoming more drier. When the areas become more drier, they are more prone to forest fires, and which is devastating the entire ecosystem, and it is killing thousands of species. So until or unless we act on the climate change, we cannot prevent the forest fires, right? And the next one, Thailand protesters asked Germany to investigate King. In the previous current issues, we have seen about the Thailand issue, why they are protesting, why they wanted the Prime Minister to actually resign, and how they do not want the monarch to actually control the government, democratic government, right? So please go through that particular video. You can understand a lot more about the Thailand protests. And negative or zero growth, but firm recovery on. So since the past few months we have been discussing about the growth rate. So India has the negative growth rate during the lockdown reason, and now it is actually progressing better, in a better way. So the finance minister says the GDP growth rate in the financial year 2021 could be close to 10.3%. So there are many projections where the economic growth can actually progress. In the yesterday's newspaper, we have discussed that it will be around 8%, right? So now as per the IMF, it is estimating to be about 10.3%, and in the yesterday's newspaper, we have seen only when there is an inclusion of the women workforce along with the men, right? When there is any gender equality, we can achieve the greater growth rate at a very less time, right? Please go through this article. And the next one, COVID to erode 3 years of fiscal consolidation gains of the states. RBI, because of COVID crisis, the states may actually lose the money which it is actually consolidating. So these are the news for today. So I'll be taking a break and I'll meet you tomorrow. And please do not forget to like, share, comment and do subscribe. Thank you. Bye.
Please do like the video, and if you have any queries, please put down in the comments below and we'll be making videos on those areas. And please click on the bell icon and do subscribe to our channel. Thank you.